Hi guys, I just thought I'd put something together about Trump's election victory. I know not everyone's into politics, which they are, but they're just not into formal politics because politics is everything. I was talking to someone before about the way they're treated in their workplace on like a 0 hours contract. We've just got a new Labour government who said they're going to try and work against 0 hours contracts and reduce them. But saying it and doing it's another thing, particularly with the mess that the UK seems to be in at the moment after 14 bad years with Brexit, Johnson, Truss, and this culture war narrative. And I want to just go to what politics is because I think first and foremost, you've got to acknowledge that whatever's happening around you, you need to control your own mind. You need to keep calm and carry on. You need to know your mind, develop yourself. I keep saying this. And then think about organizations and groups that you want to join because together we get more done. And we've got this big thing in the UK at the moment, and it's probably the same across a lot of other Western countries, that you as an individual, if you don't succeed, it's your fault, as if there's nothing out there that has any influence on you. It's just purely down to you. And I watched a great podcast recently. I think it's called Gary's Economics, and it's called How to Get Rich. Check out that podcast about the situation facing people today in the United Kingdom. Now, let's just go over the pond to our neighbours of the special relationship, the United States of America. Now, I've got family in America. They say when America sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold in terms of economics. But politically, the UK is probably influenced more by what happens in the USA than any other because a lot of the things which are happening in the United States often happen in the UK a few years later. So we had like the kind of Reagan, Thatcher years. And I know Thatcher was slightly before Reagan getting elected to office, which had a big impact on the 80s and kind of reinforced this kind of real inequality in society. Now, a lot of people in the world today, you're more likely to die of eating the wrong stuff, poor health due to poor eating, than because of starvation. And one of the big problems in Western societies like the UK and the USA is it's not always like absolute poverty. I mean, in the US, people have to pay for like prescriptions and healthcare, which we don't in the UK. They pay twice as much over there under their private system as we do through our taxation system. But people aspire to be something, and when they can't get there, they get frustrated, which leads to the rise of populism and the rise of strong men. Populism is the idea that, like, by just coming up with a few little groups who are the real enemies, and so immigrants, foreigners, LGBT people, and then you get all these conspiracy theories, which is like mad. Never mind, like blaming minority groups and striking down at people below you and blaming them for your problems, which we've seen throughout history. But all this conspiracy stuff. And I think what the Trump election, the second Trump election, does is it gets us thinking about whether we are even going to be able to have fair elections in the future. We might technically have free and fair elections in many countries, but the role of social media in the modern era, people have said, oh, social media and the internet, it'll mean more information and decentralized information. In fact, because of private interest and algorithms, we're now being told lies and conspiracies at a mass level. And people are also in their own little echo chambers. So I'm just watching the NFL. I like America, don't get me wrong. I think America's a nice place, good ideas. I like a lot about it. I wouldn't like to live there because of, I think, those problems with the cost of living in the United States. 60% of people in the US are living paycheck to paycheck. And it may well be that the election of Trump, and let's be honest, you wouldn't want Trump to be. Trump is one of those people who should never, ever be in a position of power or control over others. We've all met people like this through life, like, goodness gracious, that person, a sociopath, psychopathic tendencies, narcissist. With Trump, it's a little bit different because not only is he a poor businessman, he doesn't pay his bills. People who work for him and work hard for him and all that, he doesn't always pay them. And My uncle, who were interviewed on a previous podcast, knows a couple of people who were never paid by him for the work. That's the kind of person he is. He doesn't pay. And he also lets people underneath him burn. Look at his last presidential term where like people getting sacked, sent to prison, burned. He just throws them away like collateral damage. And he really is some kind of like cult, mafia, religio kind of weird, strange man. And I remember there was a book written about Hitler and how he was able to like speak to people like generals and very powerful people and have them eating out of his hand, even though he was a fundamentally flawed person and a real weirdo. And that's what Trump's like. And it's like this, in all the mass complexity of modern society, this strong person rises up and just says things like tariffs, mass deportations, that'll sort all our problems out. And the people who he's appointed, if you met those people in a bar or in the street or you'd probably say that person is crazy, like absolutely crazy. And in the United States, they have this thing about draining the swamp, about like how the federal government's all bad. It goes back to Reagan and rugged individualism, the idea that individuals should be able to freely do whatever they want without interference from the government. And it's all very great in theory, isn't it? Get rid of government, everyone just looks after themselves. Yeah, okay, fine. What happens when people break the laws? What happens when you need healthcare or an operation? What happens when someone tries to take your stuff or whatever? And again, a lot of countries really struggle to deal with basic things like the idea of how do we deal with criminals? How do we stop people becoming criminals in the first place? How do we make sure societies give people what they need, that we don't have these kind of pockets of poverty, racial tensions, divisions, people born into poverty, all these deeply complex issues. And sometimes, like, people come up with a simple answer, say, oh, we just need to do this and everything will be fine. Yeah, it's nice to think like that, isn't it? But things are far more complex than that. But the Democrats need to do a lot of soul searching. The left, the progressive left, need to do a lot of soul searching. This is like turning democracy. Will we have a free and fair election now with the internet and the vested interests the way it is now in the United States, which is meant to be this like example to everyone else? Now, we know during the Cold War, there was all those contradictions and they were up to all kinds, don't get me wrong. But if they fade and become a mafia state that flexes its muscles now and again for its own interests, when Trump goes, and let's be honest with you, he's old, he's unhealthy, he's quite sad, isn't he? Sometimes you need to think, like, from a Buddhist perspective, what must it be like being Trump? How sad and twisted he is. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, he's going to damage a lot of other people, but it's quite sad, really, how he can be like that, isn't it? Sometimes you've got to think like that, who are those people who voted for him, who know what he did on January the 6th, who know that he's a criminal, who knows the way he treats women. We know all this stuff, and yet people, oh no, I don't want to talk about that. Now, they say that maybe the Democrats lost. Apparently, no incumbent government has won an election this year, possibly because of inflation to do with the Ukraine invasion and international conditions. So governments are struggling because there's been inflation and people are angry and want inflation to come down. Even though Biden's economic performance was better than Trump's, even though the US is performing well compared to many, people are feeling the pinch. And one of the things about Trump is it's the simplicity of message. They're eating cats and dogs, immigrants. I'm going to kick them all out. I'm going to go round and round them all up and kick them all out. I'm going to do that. I am going to sort the economy out by introducing big tariffs on other countries. Now, you look at all that and you go, well, actually, that's nonsense. The power now of that right-wing media to just keep repeating that. And Kamala played quite a centrist position in all this. So she's been accused in the past of being quite, lefty and progressive and woke, whatever that means. Basically, anyone who's more to the left than you from the far right. And a lot of commentators are now like critiquing the left for being too woke. Now, when you actually look at what the left have done in the United States, and by the left, we're talking about the centre, because there isn't much of a left in the United States. The Overton window has gone so far to the right that people think that, like, Liz Cheney is now a leftist wokey. Liz Truss, the markets are woke. It's like McCarthyism gone wrong, but McCarthy's still in power. If you look at what McCarthy did in the 50s, it's like the emperor's new clothes in the UK and the US at the moment. It's crazy. And then you've got like the Southport murders, Tommy Robinson, Nigel Farage, Douglas Murray, all these crazies saying all kinds. Andrew Tate makes comments, whipping up a frenzy. Now, as a result of that, I left TikTok because they were like trying to show me Tommy Robinson videos. I was only on there to share the podcast. I'm like, is that what your algorithm's doing? I was a white guy in the UK. Let's send him a Tommy Robinson video. Where's free speech and all that, trying to force ideas on people for market reasons? I left X as well, because what I saw after the protests over here, you've got people like Musk saying, oh, England's post the Civil War. You've got people who are so-called liberals or centrists in the United States thinking that the UK is being taken over by all these jihadists. Okay? People can't afford food. People can't buy houses or rent. And people on the right are going on about, oh, jihadists are going to take over the UK. And then supposed liberals and centrists in the States are thinking that as well. It's all that about. We keep calm and carry on just after I've got all wound up. Because ultimately, one day, Trump won't be here. And yeah, when the Nazis were defeated, international kind of stuff wasn't as strong as it is now. The danger of a nuclear war would affect all of us. The dangers of climate change would affect all of us and will affect all of us and are affecting all of us. Okay? So now you've got like people in governments and potentially people in this country who want to be the government in the UK, in the shadow cabinet, who are saying climate change isn't real and all this stuff. Okay? Now, if you want to believe that and go online and watch a video, I've heard people in the UK pro-Trump, anti-vax, sharing the Pizzagate conspiracy online on Facebook a few years ago about all the Democrats and in this like elite in the United States, paedophiles and all this stuff. And Trump's just appointed Matt Gaetz, or wants to appoint Matt Gaetz as Attorney General. Look at what Matt Gaetz is accused of. Now, if the US falls or becomes some kind of mafia fiefdom, or becomes solely interested in what's happening in America and screw everyone else, and Trump just wants to be like a local kind of like mafia figure in the United States. Okay, but when he goes, more might come, it might get worse. Okay, it's literally like the early stages of The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood, with the abortion thing over there and this worshipping of this kind of like religious figure. Now, what happened in Waco, Texas, was it in the 90s? That's now happening in Washington in January when Trump goes in there a second time. Look at what he's saying now. Now, it may well be that, like Matthew Parris said a few years ago, who's a kind of a one-nation conservative commentator in the UK, and he said America will get past Trump. And they will, and we will, because it impacts all of us. Because if America falls as a defender of democracy, whatever that means anyway, China will fill the vacuum. Russia might seek to fill the vacuum and come into Europe. That is not good for anyone. It doesn't matter whether you're on the left or the right. You wouldn't want to live in systems similar to China and Russia. You've got people on the left in this country, I've met some of them, who are going on saying, oh, Russia's just doing what it should over the Ukraine war. People on the left. So America's voted for Trump, and there are huge, huge worries about the future of democracy itself. And like a lot of things, some good things may come of it. Who knows? Maybe some things will be reset, or it'll be that bad that there'll be a reaction against it in the future. But it's very important that people know their own mind, develop it, and work with other people to try and make things better. It's down to us together to change things and make things better for our moving forward in the future. And I'm not even telling you what to do or what to believe. If you want to be a right-winger, a conservative, that's great. Just don't be a lunatic. Don't be a lunatic. Don't be one of these mad conspiracy theorists. You get them on the left as well. Let's have rational conversations and debate. And for goodness sake, people on the left and the centre left, and even people on the centre right, learn the lessons of what populism promises. Because we need to learn what the populists do and try and turn it round into something better. And what is populism? Blaming people who are different. Simple messages. Blaming particular elites. Trump is the elite. Trump is going to be the elite. All he cares about is lining his own pockets and himself and his mates. That is going to be the elite when he takes power again. And he's telling you to look elsewhere at liberal elites. Absolutely ridiculous. So get involved in local politics, community politics. Think about how you can better yourself, your communities. Join those groups. Believe in the human project because we can do better than this. And let's just hope that in a few years, post-Trump, things might be a bit better. In the meantime, keep calm and carry on. And think about what you're watching. Think about who you're supporting in the media financially. And get interested in things, starting with yourself, starting with your locality, with your nation, with the international community, because I very much believe in the human project and think that we can do a lot better than what's being saved up at the moment. Thanks.